Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Valley of the Judged. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me, as always, is my good brother in the temple, our resident waifu hunter, good brother Coops.
Your waifu is trash if any of your waifus come from SAO. Because fuck SAO.
Oh. But we are back once again covering even more of Shin Megami Tensei 2000X. In the time that I've delved into it, I've been delving more and more into the very early days of Mega 10. I ended up being reminded that the Mega 10 universe technically has a game on the Virtual Boy called Jack Bros, which is probably one of the best games on the Virtual Boy, but that's not saying much. You know, when there's only about 20 games on the thing's entire lifespan.
Well, there's always a diamond in the rough, as they say.
Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that it's a bad game. It's actually pretty good. It's certainly...
Heck, I even heard the Mario Tennis game on the Virtual Boy was actually pretty okay.
Yeah. But you know why they use the phrase elephant in the room.
Yep.
Well, elephants are big and hard to ignore, and it's hard to ignore the glaring problem, quite literally, with that console. But last time we tackled 2000X, we delved a little bit into some of the background, some of the pre-gens, and a little bit of the core mechanic. It also dipped slightly into the character setup, but it was mostly going over the pre-gens, their basic and their advanced version. For this century, we're going to be going whole hog into it, especially what's referred to as the full scratch version of character creation, which it's not the first time I've seen that term. I think the first time I saw it was during Double Cross, and it amounts to the full version of character creation instead of just picking a pre-gen. So obviously it opens with the setup of what it is, but the first thing to note is the 3 tiers of PC. Quote, the PCs in Shin Megami Tensei X are divided into 3 tiers according to their degree of strength. Gifted, Awakened, and Metahuman. Gifted, they possess only a single class and they have low stats. However, they grow quickly. This is primarily designed for experiencing modern supernatural horror from levels 1 to 5. At level 5 or higher, they can awaken and become awakened. Gifted characters use the Tier 1 experience chart. The second tier, Awakened, is the tier that will likely be played for the longest amount of time. Awakened characters have 2 classes and possess stats that can adequately contend with demons. However, they might be slightly inferior to demons in terms of HP/MP and defense. Nevertheless, through a combination of skills, equipment, and teamwork, they can effectively engage in battles with demons. Awakened characters use the Tier 2 experience chart. If you want to quickly experience the charms of Shin Megami Tensei X, it is recommended to create and play an Awakened character of 5th level or higher. Awakened PCs may awaken into metahumans after level 40. Some may choose the optional Devilkin Awakening, following a path beyond Tyrants, which we'll get into in a moment. The third tier, Metahuman, is an existence that transcends the limits of humanity. Metahumans acquire a 3rd class and possess stats that rival the gods. They also have the potential to approach the gods in terms of HP and MP and defense. Metahumans become powerful beings akin to demigods, and this tier is designed for those who wish to portray heroes capable of battling high-ranking demons. Metahumans use the Tier 3 experience chart. And we have a thing on demon PCs. With the GM's permission, PCs may use demons instead of being human. Demon PCs do not undergo any changes due to awakening, but they can transform into different demons via fusion. PCs use the Tier 3 chart. Fusion is something we will be covering in this series, but not yet. Because, if I'm being honest, regardless of game, Fusion deserves its own episode.
I was gonna say, how long until we have to cover that?
Yeah, fortunately, we're not going to cover every possible combination with Fusion, because otherwise we'd be here for months.
Well, duh.
But then there's Devilkin Awakening. Human PCs can awaken into a demonic form, instead of undergoing the 3rd metahuman awakening. By assimilating with a demon, they become Devilkin. This path leads to becoming a demon that can surpass even a tyrant or vile. Devilkin PCs use the Stage 3 experience chart. So, given that experience charts are mentioned, and this is something I kind of hinted at on Friday when I was talking about Tokyo Conception, there seems to be a skew towards balancing over campaigns rather than balancing at individual levels. There's nothing good or bad about that, it's just different. So, after that we go into the step process for full scratch. First the trailer, which we talked about the trailer thing last week.
Yep.
Then the character creation, where we're at now. Then personal data, then deciding the relationships between PCs, and there will be a relationship table. And then we get to the outline of actual character creation. The first is class selection. Now, they refer to it as classes, but when I covered the classes back with Tokyo Conception, they felt more like archetypes than classes, in the same way that the classes in, say, Anima are more akin to archetypes.
Right.
The difference being is that one of them has a leaning towards certain things, and the other is stuff you're directly getting per level. But when we get to the classes, that will determine individual stats, skills, and equipment for a level 1 character. You can select one class at Awakening Tier 1, 2 at Tier 2, and 3 at Tier 3. So, once again, we have a case where multi-classing is kind of baked in, as opposed to being this separate thing. Good?
Which I'm actually a fan of.
Mm-hmm. I mean, multi-classing is in more ubiquitous role-playing games, but it's always been a side thing, and usually having a bunch of caveats that create problems. because it's being put into something that it wasn't built for.
Yeah.
But then we have the notion of initial stats and bonus stats. Initial stats being self-explanatory, and bonus stats are bonus stat allocations you can put in at each level. Saying, for example, at level 1 you can add 1 point to any stat you wish. At level 5 you can distribute 1 point to each of the 5 stats, or invest all 5 points in a single stat as desired. You know, if you...
Oh, so it was just like what we did with Sword World.
To a point. The whole adding 1 point to a stat thing has been kind of a thing in the video games for the longest time. But then we have skills, which are an expression of your ability. These are learned sequentially from your class and occasionally from additional skills. So once you've chosen a class, you look at its skill list and learn all of the skills up to your level. And you have additional skills. Apart from classes, you can learn any skill you want from the additional skills table. One additional skill is learned at level 1, and one more at every 10th level thereafter. You may decide which skill you want by rolling on one of the columns in the additional skill table, which is at the bottom of this page, or simply choosing your preference. Then initial equipment, you'll get this specifically from your class. Then background selection. This is going to be the background table, which we'll get to in a moment. You'd roll or pick 2 backgrounds for your character. Then contacts. You gain 2 connections from the contact table. These are people you have a strong relationship with. And these can be derived automatically based on the background settings or from the additional contacts table. You're going to see a lot of tables. So many tables you may think that we're in Buffalo.
I'm used to it at this point.
Yeah. But obviously at the bottom we have the additional skills table. You can either roll a d10 or pick one from the list. So obviously some of these are going to look familiar.
Yep.
We have the 3 columns for all PCs, as well as an additional one that you can only pick from when you're level 15 or higher, and a specific column for demon PCs. See, then personal data, and then character data. Now, personal data is exactly what it sounds like. The character data, this is going to be the derived stats. The first is the target number. So when you're checking a certain stat, this is what you're trying to roll under, since it's a percentile system, which is the stat times 5 plus level. And then we have auxiliary target numbers. These are more specific ones. The first being the dodge TN, which is agility plus 10. And then conversation, which is double your luck plus 20. Then we have hit HP and MP. Your hit points are determined by your vitality plus life. Plus times your HP multiplier. For humans, the HP multiplier is times 4. The life series of passive skills can increase that. And same, MP works in a similar manner. It's just that the multiplier for humans is times 2. Obviously, if you're playing as demons, it's going to vary.
Yeah.
Then the base powers. When determining the magnitude of damage, there are 3 base powers: melee, ranged, and spell. Melee serves as the foundation for the potency of melee attacks. It is the sum of your strength plus level. Ranged is equal to your agility, but your level is not added when it comes to ranged, which I find interesting. I'm I'm not going to say I dislike it because I want to see it in further context down the road, but we put a pin in that for now. And then spell power is equal to your magic plus level. I do appreciate that a lot of them scale with your level, because I've seen some cases where things like your initiative is static unless you pick specific builds, which was always stupid. See, then defense, which you have physical or magical defense, it is equal to your vitality plus any modifiers from armor. Physical defense reduces damage from strike and gun affinity attacks. Magic defense reduces the damage from all other affinity attacks. Then we have initiative, which is agility plus level, pretty standard. Then fate points, which could be considered a kind of extra effort mechanic. They fully recharge at the start of each game, or each session, if you prefer. They start at 5 and increase by 1 for every 5 points of luck you possess. If you're playing as a human, you gain the Null Expel affinity. And then there's the starting currency, which is 50 times your level. And remember, 1 Maka equals 1,000 yen. If you want to do like the first SMT and use yen early on and then transition over to Maka once the bombs drop. And then, as mentioned, the whole thing with PC relationships. And, of course, right after that, we have a brief description on skills, along with using alternate naming for different skills. Mostly a thematic thing. As well as switching out equipment if you're playing at a higher level. So class equipment is intended for use at level 1. If a class is gained at a higher level due to awakening, the character may swap a weapon for another of the same type, provided it can normally be purchased within GP plus 5 at that time. Sure, we'll get into GP later, but then we have the classes, and there's quite a few of them. There's a lot more than there were in Tokyo Conception.
How many did that have?
Only really only 3. Like human, fiend, and demon. I might be missing one, but it had archetypes. This one, it leans a little bit into classes, but not as much. And fortunately, each of the classes can be summarized in a card's worth of info. And of course, as you go into them, you can see each of them has keywords for awakening. I'm sure we'll get into that as we go in. The base stats, as their starting items, and the skills that they learn and at what level they learn them. And not everybody's learning skills at the same levels, as you can see.
Right.
It is suggested to have candidate as your first class if you're going at tier 1. But that is going to be up to various folk. What if
I want to go crazy with like love tier 2 or tier 3?
I'm pretty sure we'll end up getting to that. But And of course, right after that collection of classes is the background tables. Um, you would roll 1d10 to see which table you roll on, and then roll again for the background. Each of it has a bit of a description on the background as well as the contact you end up getting. Um, some of the names are going to be familiar to those who've played early SMT. And others aren't really a named contact, but more of a organization. And of course, Table A and a bit of Table C has the additional contacts, which work in the same manner. You just have a few more tables to work with. You've got 5 to work with, each with a named contact who has their own page entry. And after that, you have the relationship table. Then one table for odd hobbies. I find it amusing that manga and publications is referred to it, as well as games referred to as odd hobbies, but I'll take it. And a couple tables for important things. But that's all assuming you're playing as a human. Shortly after that, we have an overview on playing as a demon. Now this was in Tokyo Conception, and it's also here. A demon's stats are rolled randomly as they level up, instead of you being able to pick which point. This is where you might have some familiarity, because even though I expedited the process, we did have those rolls between sessions when you guys were advancing along the 6 ability scores there.
Yeah, I remember.
I do appreciate that they put in a note saying dark-type demons, such as haunts or fowls, should not be allowed as PCs. Likewise, high-tier demons like vials, tyrants, and other boss classes should be restricted.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment right there.
Mm-hmm. So, when it comes to a lot of the base setup, it's largely the same. Defense is calculated as vitality plus level, and that can be improved via the endure type of skills. The HP and MP multiplier is higher. It's 6 for HP and 3 for MP. But instead, with humans, when you level up, you get a point to put into one of the abilities. For demons, you have to roll a d10, and that determines which stat goes up. Unless you roll a 6 or higher on that d10, in which case you pick which one.
So either RNG or you get the luck of the draw to choose your own stat. I like that.
Mm-hmm. So, much like with humans, you get a roll on the additional skill table that I showed every 10th level. However, you can't learn skills for affinities you're weak against. So you're not going to see a Jack Frost learning Agi spells.
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
No, if you wanted to learn Agi spells as a demon, why'd you pick Jack Frost? Pick Pyro Jack.
Exactly.
Yeah. But then we get to character growth. Obviously, growth is through earning experience. Even if you're dead, you still get experience. Even if you're dead or KO'd, you still get experience. If the demon you defeated is 10 levels or higher over the party level, then the experience gained is doubled for every 10 levels of difference. How this particular thing is not factored in when it comes to boss enemies, as that's already taken into account. But you level up when you gain a requisite amount of experience points. They refer to the experience chart. We'll get to that in a minute. Your next level's required experience can also be calculated using the following formula. Next level cubed times tier multiplier. For tier 1, that multiplier is 0.8. For tier 2, it's multiplied by 1. And for tier 3, it's multiplied by 1.3. Now, given that you can go into the very high ends of levels in this kind of system, I can see that setup if you wanted to go way past 100 or something like that. And I'm not sure I'd recommend doing that, but you can do it if you want to.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably not best for someone like me right there.
Mm-hmm. But every time you level up, you increase one of your stats by 1. Which, depending on the stat you choose, may affect the derived stats. And obviously, every stat is going to get a plus 1% bonus to the target numbers just by default, with an additional point in the stat granting plus 5 to that. Then, of course, you see if you learn any new skills, and your HP and MP are completely restored as soon as you level up. Even if you were KO'd at the end of the encounter, it still applies. Now, we already mentioned additional skills. And experience points, much like I said on Tokyo Conception, only increases, never decreases. None of that level down bullshit. Looking at you, Loa, and Vampire.
Ugh. Hate level downs.
Mm-hmm. Now, there are exceptions. If you become a higher level demon due to fusion or awakening, your XP is set to the minimum XP required for the demon to have achieved that level. And if you level down due to fusion, your XP will be set to the minimum XP for that level, for the level of that demon. We also have an optional rule called level up bonus, where the GM can, and if they decide it's too cumbersome, they can choose to not use it. You can earn bonus items when leveling up. Perform a luck check upon leveling up. If successful, roll 1d10 twice. Refer to the level up bonus table and match the results on the first roll to the left column and the second roll to the top row of the gift A table and receive the corresponding item. If the first roll is 0, re-roll that die and use gift table B. If a critical was scored in the luck check, use gift table B from the start. Nothing happens if the check is unsuccessful. Then we have the level up bonus table here, which has some of the stuff you can get. Which, it is basically a way to get some degree of free items when leveling up, which is why I can see this could be an optional rule.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, just get some free money. Like if you get 2 on table A.
Which honestly, when it comes to the Shin Megami Tensei games, I usually go for money. Go for mostly money more unless I need a specific skill.
Mm-hmm. which is completely fair. Now, then we have Awakening. As mentioned, when you go through Awakening, you get a new class and its skills. Now, in order to have an Awakening, you have to meet certain thresholds. To go from Gifted to Awakened, you have to be at least level 5. And to go from Awakened to Metahuman, you have to be at least level 40. That and a special event is required to trigger an Awakening, as it says. When encountering something relevant to an Awakening keyword from a class's data, you can awaken if you meet the level criteria above. For example, if a 5th level Psychic obtains Mystic Change Gear, they will have satisfied a successor Awakening event, and then can then awaken to a successor if desired. That's what the Awakening keyword is something I could see some GMs using and some GMs just ignoring because it may not fit the story that they're telling.
What about in your case?
Case by case basis. Obviously, it obviously depends on what they already have in their class setup, as well as how they've been playing things, is how I'd handle it. Okay. But I wouldn't be a stickler for it, because as I keep saying, nobody plays Uno as written.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm. So, when you awaken, you gain a new class. You get to add the stats of the newly acquired class to the ones you already have. You learn all the skills available from the newly acquired class according to your current level. And of course, since you're technically leveling up in a similar manner, your HP, MP, and bad status are restored. Your required XP for the next level will shift to match your new Awakening tier. And as mentioned, we have Devilkin Awakening, an awakened PC of level 40 or above, confused with a demon card to perform a Devilkin Awakening if desired. And that's covered in Devilkin Fusion, which is something we'll get into down the road. And then we have the experience chart.
And holy shit, is it huge.
Yeah, we are going all the way to 100. And this three-tier setup was also in Tokyo Conception. It's just used a bit broadly. In fact, the classes are closer to traditional classes here than the broad archetypes I saw in Tokyo Conception. The only thing that I didn't see is a kind of demon template that TC had. I guess you could go under the assumption that the charts for the individual demon would use that. You just give them classes from this list. But speaking of, when I look at the classes, there's quite a few as mentioned, but were there any that stood out to you?
Oh, let me go back real quick.
They start on page 47.
Yeah. Okay. I saw one that caught my eye real quick. Aside from magicians, surprisingly, there was the doctor/nurse class. A medical professional strive to save people. Though their abilities seem meager in the face of demons, their hope keeps them going.
Oh, and Alandar in the chat had pointed out something. Demons don't get classes and just follow the tier 3 chart. Alright, my mistake on that. Though, given that this is drawing upon SMT 1 and 2, well, we may see it later, but I'm surprised I haven't seen any mention of Magnetite yet. since that was kind of the fuel for summoning, which if we don't see it at all, I'm not going to miss it. And it's one of those things that I could see creating some problems in tabletop. Never mind the fact that you're doubling down on some sort of monetary use, but but what I did notice is that some of the classes do have uses of fate. For example, summoner, you spend 1 fate to summon a demon from a demon card that you have. Up to the end of the battle or scene, only 1 demon can be summoned at a time. And you already start with the pick. If you pick summoner, you get the fairy pixie demon at level 4. And obviously another example would be, as far as using fate, would be something like the outsider, which can transform into a demon up to a level plus max fate.
Now, the outsider, are they limited to the amount of demons they can transform into?
I think we'll end up, given that one of the skills that they get right out, in fact, the skill they get right out of the gate is demon transformation, I think it'd be covered there. So put a pin in that. That's something that we can answer once we get into skills. But obviously another example of this sort of thing is Successor, where they get Mystic change gear up to with the cap of the level being their max fate plus level. So I am seeing a few more uses of fate than I saw initially in character creation for Tokyo Conception. As well as a few mentions of alignment, which that's something we'll probably get into a bit later on. And I think one of the things I find interesting is, obviously, even though levels cap out at 100, for most of the classes, you'll get all of the skills you can get from it once you're around level 50, because what I'm seeing, none of the classes grant level actually, I take that back, because Swordsman, you get Retaliated level 51. But for the most part, you could say things cap out at 50, much like, say, in some video game RPGs, even if you can go up to level 99, you stop really getting new stuff in the mid-60s.
Right. I
mean, obviously, there's exceptions to this rule.
Right. Oh, one thing I need to know is that it makes me laugh that they actually have a journalist class.
Yeah, although
it just gives me more reason to make fun of them.
Yeah, although I'd say this journalist is more akin to, well, the type of journalist that everybody said I was for years and I kept denying. But I could easily see printing out the class entries on cardstock. Probably not the same cardstock for a Magic the Gathering card. That might make the text a little too small, but something a little bigger than that.
Yeah. Oh, and I also see they get the skill Ruler of Fate at level 48. Mm-hmm. Let's just hope a group of a group of journalists that we know don't achieve this power. Potato.
I was gonna make the joke. I was gonna make the joke about Dicebreaker, but Dicebreaker doesn't exist anymore. But what I see out of there's been some critique with Tokyo Conception that if you're playing human, you don't really get as much in the long term. I don't think you'd have that same issue here. Maybe once you're in once you're in the 50s, but by that point, you're still getting stuff, and that's and it's more it's more in the fact that there's a lot that this is clear. The balancing is clearly more long term than short term. But I'd say full scratch. This is still pretty straightforward. Like I could easily see someone building a full scratch character in one sitting. I think it would only get complicated if you're using a higher level than the setup.
Yeah.
But like the only thing I would have really added is just giving some kind of hint about what each of the stats is going to do in that section. But that's something that'll be covered later. So with that in mind, I know this was a shorter one, but we will be delving into the rules the next time we do this. Now, some of the core rules I've kind of already dipped into. It's going to be using a D100 system. That's already established. Unlike the video games, we are not going to be doing any sort of press turn thing because, well, this is based on Megaten 1 and 2. I don't even think the press turn system was in there yet. I want to say press turn didn't show up until Nocturne, but I have a feeling there's an entry in the franchise that had something close before then. As well, I've played plenty of games in the SMT universe. I'm not going to claim to be an expert. There's still a bunch of stuff that I haven't played because it hasn't been translated, or I just don't have the platform, like some of those phone games. Not mobile games, but old ass flip phone games.
Ones with Snake on them.
Yeah, there were a lot of them. And, well, some of them I've played, but I don't want to go back to, like some of the last Bible games.
Oh god, no.
Especially Another Bible. That one puts you to sleep. But with that said, as mentioned, we will see you next week when we get into the rules proper. And the shenanigans that will inevitably come with that. So until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Thank you. も物理を持つ